In today's video, we're going to be going over some fragrances that are definitely not overhyped. In my opinion, a lot of these maybe don't get as much attention as I feel like they should. Or in some instances, maybe these do get a fair amount of attention, but I still don't think it's to the point where they're talked about too much. I still think that for the money, for what these provide, these are really good, well above average scents that are worth checking out no matter where you're at in your collecting hobby. If you're just starting out or if you already have an established collection and you want to continue adding to it, I think these will provide value. So we'll actually start off with Coach Green. So this one here is one that is impressively good, and I wasn't really expecting it to be, just because, you know, the original Coach kind of Sauvage leaning. Coach Blue was a little bit more of a mediocre release also. Coach Platinum I've always really liked, but Coach Green came out and really did something different. It has kiwi, rosemary, bergamot, and oak moss, so it is very much a green scent. It's evident by the note breakdown, of course by the name of the bottle as well, and when you smell it, that's all the confirmation that you need. So it kind of has this green kiwi fruitiness off the top, but then you're really getting into that oak moss as you start to get into the mid and dry down, which adds to that green type of smell that this one has. The rosemary gives it a little bit of like an aromatic feel, kind of an outdoorsy aromatic smell. A little bit of bergamot off the top as well, but it's something that smells kind of cooling, uplifting, refreshing, and it's great for spring in particular. You could wear this one as it gets a bit warmer as well, but personally I think if I were to choose one season for it, it's going to be spring. It just makes the most sense. Most green smelling scents like this one remind me the most of spring, pretty much for obvious reasons. And on discounters, you're looking at a pretty good price for this one. Usually going to be, I don't know, around $40 to $50, kind of in that mid-range price for something that's unique, for something that stands out. And you know, if you were like me where you were on the fence about this one, you weren't sure if it was going to be something that would be of interest to you, give it a try. You know, maybe sample it first if you can, but you might be surprised at how much you actually end up liking this one, even if your track record with some of the other Coach fragrances hasn't been as good. This next one here is a niche fragrance, so it's going to be a little bit more expensive. However, it's one of the very best I have ever smelled, and it's one that I'm so glad exists, and I'm so glad that I have it, especially because, man, this one really, I wouldn't necessarily completely change the game for me, but it definitely opened my eyes up to just a different side of the, you know, hobby that I guess I wasn't really, you know, fully aware of. And not necessarily that, but just it opened me up to a new style of scent, I guess is what I should say, that I just kind of really dove into. It is Kilian Straight to Heaven. So just the, you know, standard one here. They have a couple other special editions, but we're not talking about those. This one has rum, cedarwood, patchouli, and dried fruits. Smoky, sweet, boozy, dry, woody, a little bit of that fruitiness comes through as well. It smells absolutely amazing. And so, you know, this was one of the fragrances that really got me interested in this type of style, this more boozy, woody, kind of premium smelling scent. And it doesn't just have to be niche either. Plenty of fragrances that are kind of doing a similar type of boozy, woody combination that are designers, right? Or maybe niche, but not as expensive niche. And so it just kind of, you know, really made me realize how much I like this style of, because especially when I was starting out, I was all about freshies and aquatics, essentially. Aquatic scents and citrus-based scents, summer scents is really what I was focusing in on. I didn't have much interest in cooler weather, fall and winter scents right away. And after I started branching out a little bit further, and I even started doing some sampling here and there, Straight to Heaven was one that I finally ended up trying and realized just how much I like this stuff, and I really wasn't expecting to be honest. So now every time fall and winter comes around, I try to wear this one as much as I can because I love it, and it's definitely too heavy, too rich, too full-bodied to be wearing in summertime and really in spring as well, although could pull it off on cooler spring days, I suppose. But this one has fall and winter written all over it. You know, there's something kind of warm and cozy and inviting about this one, which also makes it great for this cold time of year. For me, one of the very best, one that I absolutely love, and it's well known in the niche community anyways, but I still don't think it's out of proportion. Like, this definitely isn't on the level of Creed Aventus or Elysium or Baccarat Rouge 540, that level of hype where some might feel as though it's a bit too much. To me, this one pretty underrated even still. All right, now let's switch gears. We'll go back to more spring and summer oriented, and we'll go back to a price point which is way more attractive. This is Rasasi Hawas Kobra. So nice twist on Louis Vuitton Imagination. If you've smelled Imagination, that green tea, musky, citrusy based scent, then when you smell this, you'll see that there is a very, very clear and obvious correlation. This one, is not one-to-one, I would say. Like, I think Rasasi has put out other clones that are maybe closer before, and this one, not quite as much. Still heavily inspired by and more similar than not, but I would say maybe we're looking at about 80% close here. There's nothing wrong with that either. I actually kind of prefer the fact that this one has a slight deviation, maybe gives their own little unique twist and gives it some character that maybe we weren't getting in regular Imagination. I actually find that regular or real Imagination, whatever you want to call it, Louis Vuitton Imagination, is a little bit fresher, whereas I find Kobra a little bit more of a woody focus. I wouldn't call it sweeter because it's not really a sweet scent, but it's just, again, it's a little bit heavier, and I don't mind that at all. In fact, I kind of like that. I think it makes it a little bit more versatile, especially for early spring, which we're kind of coming up on, where you might have some 50, 55 degree days, a little bit cooler out. The added woodiness that this one has kind of helps it along when it's not warm, or overly warm. It's got the green tea, the musk, everything about this one, just nice, cooling, refreshing, bright, smells so good. I love this DNA, and Kobra here comes in at around, I think, $45 to maybe $50 right now, somewhere around in there. And that price will probably drop a little bit more as more time goes on. But this is one that is great for the upcoming seasons, spring and summer. So if you want this one, I would look into getting it sooner rather than later. There's a good chance that either it can sell out, intermittently as we get into the warmer weather, and during that time, maybe the price will go up a little bit due to obvious supply and demand issues. This stuff happens all the time. So if you want it, get it now while you can get it for a good price and while it's in stock at a lot of places. This next one is Mancera Cosmic Pepper. It has lemon, pink pepper, black pepper, some tonka bean in here as well, so you would expect pepper galore given the name, and you do get that. And the way I've described this one for years, essentially, well, not for years, I guess it hasn't been out for that long, but ever since the beginning, ever since I first tried this one, I have described it as essentially being kind of the tonka bean sweet kind of creaminess of Chanel Allure Homme Sport Extreme mixed with essentially the spicy lavender richness of YSL La Nuit de l'Homme. So that's kind of where I go with this one. That's really a couple of the scents that it reminds me of. A little bit of regular Allure Homme Sport is in here as well, just kind of on the fresher end. Again, that tonka bean, creamier sweetness of Extreme is what I pick up on more. And then just a similar peppery lavender combination that YSL La Nuit de l'Homme has. Now, it's important to note that this doesn't have cardamom. Instead, it has the pink pepper and the black pepper. Obviously, La Nuit de l'Homme has cardamom, so there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. Instead of a cardamom richness, it's just, again, kind of a black pepper spice. However, how it mixes with that tonka and with some of the other sweeter, creamier notes, it still smells a lot like that spicy combination of La Nuit de l'Homme with that lavender introduced as well. So that's kind of where this one sits for me, which ultimately makes it something that kind of stands out. You're combining some popular, designer scents, mixing in with a little bit of a Mancera twist as well. It's not just exactly like meshing those two together and that's it. There are differences as well, but man, it smells really, really good. A lot of versatility, this is one where I wouldn't necessarily call it like a summer scent or a spring scent or a fall scent. It can kind of be used year-round with, some level of caution and certain times, mostly high summer heat. But other than that, any other time of the year, you shouldn't have a problem with it. This is an eau de parfum concentration, and just like most Manceras, it performs really good, so no issues there. I would imagine at some point, thinking way down the road into the future, that we'll get an extrait, like an intense version, which they update to an extrait concentration, just like they've done with Instant Crush and Cedrat Boisé and Red Tobacco so far. I think at some point they'll probably do that to this. So, we'll be curious to see kind of what direction they take that if and when that time comes. But for now, Cosmic Pepper EDP. Love this stuff. Really, really good just because of how versatile it is, and it's also a really good compliment getter. People aren't really talking about this one, at least nearly not as much as Red Tobacco and Cedrat Boisé, but I definitely think it is underrated. This next one is Lattafa Teriaq Intense. This one has plum, liquor, cinnamon, amber, and tonka bean. The way I describe this one is it's a more wearable version of Lattafa Kobra. Okay, obviously coming from the same brand here, you know, to me that's what this is. Kobra has more of a caramelized toffee sweetness about it, and I love that about it. I think Kobra smells amazing. That one and Kwawa also smells really good. Nice coffee take on that DNA. They're great scents. There's nothing wrong with them. However, there are times where Kobra can be a little bit too overbearing, a little bit too sweet, perhaps even a little bit too strong, depending on which situation you're going to and what your preferences are. It's kind of on the extreme end of things. I think we can all agree with that. That's why some people don't like it, right? It's very sweet. I think Teriaq Intense is still sweet. We need to establish that. However, not quite as much. It's a little bit more tame, a little bit more mild. And to me, you know, you could almost say that this is what Lattafa Kobra should have been. Now, that's polarizing because, of course, some people will disagree. For me, this is one that I can get much more use out of. To me, it's one that I would rather reach for in most circumstances because it's not so over the top, and that's just my personal preference. And I think it's nice that we have this, you know, because some people prefer Kobra, some people prefer this, depending on what level of extreme you want to go, and so now you kind of have the options here. This one smells really good, the quality is still there, the performance is still there too, so we're not really sacrificing much in terms of performance. I think Kobra is still stronger overall, but when you compare it to this, which is still lasting for 9-10 hours, you know, it's not really that big of a deal. I think for the money, this one's really good. Definitely fall and winter oriented. Not one that I'm going to be picking up as soon as we start getting into spring temperatures, but really, really nice. Now, this is definitely one I'll be wearing here in spring coming up. YSL Y Eau de Parfum Intense. So I remember when this one first came out, I think it might have came out somewhere around like this time a couple of years ago. I could be wrong, but I remember when I did get this one, there was a point where I was wearing it every single day, you know, like legitimately days in a row. I would wear Y EDP Intense, and pretty quickly I put a dent in the bottle. It's kind of hard to see, but yeah, there's a good amount missing for, you know, what I'm typically rotating through, and that happened quickly. I got hooked on this one immediately, and it's just because it's super easy to wear. Also, it's not as sweet as Y EDP. That's the main selling point for me anyways, is it takes away that sweet apple, which I love from time to time, don't get me wrong. Y EDP, great scent, but instead what they're doing is they're focusing on the aromatics, all of that sage, the lavender, the geranium, kind of that green mintiness, all of that is being brought to the forefront even more. And again, because they're taking out that sweet apple accord, it makes this one more fresh, more aromatic, and ultimately more wearable in a wider variety of situations and seasons, and maybe even more mass-pleasing to maybe a wider age range as well, because that apple accord in Y EDP does give it that younger, more playful sweetness, similar to like what Eros does. Now, they're not similar scents in terms of smell at all, although both use an apple, which is pretty sweet and kind of at the forefront to give it that playful, younger, fruity smell. And so the fact that we don't have this in here, again, just makes it more appealing to me, something that I reach for a lot more often. Kind of running down to the end of the video here with Diesel Fuel for Life, just the original. It gets hate. Really, any diesel fragrance is going to be you know, not looked at the best way. They're not, you know, a super authoritative brand in the fragrance community, but they do have a couple really, really good ones, and this is one of them, and this is just one of the best. And I mean, it's been around for years as well. Has raspberry, woods, and lavender, fruity, woody, masculine, sweet, but still plenty of a freshness about it as well, and plenty of an aromatic focus also. But it smells really, really nice. I love Diesel Fuel for Life. Smells amazing. They've had a few flankers over the years. They've all been discontinued. Actually, a few have popped up on discounters here recently. I posted about it on my community tab. That stuff sold out quick. They had Diesel Fuel for Life denim, like the men's version. You can still get the women's version everywhere, but the men's version they had Spirit as well. So kind of cool that that stuff popped up. I wish I would have bought a bottle of either of them, both, but I didn't. I saved them for everybody else, and I kind of regret it now. But Feel for Life, just the regular one that you could still get, I love it. Really, really big fan of this stuff. And you know, I'm going to say that it's kind of unique smelling. You know, people are going to laugh at that, but there's nothing else that really smells like this. There just isn't. You know, I haven't smelled anything like this with this raspberry, anise, lavender, woody combination. Just super, super interesting stuff. I love it. I don't care what anybody says. Big fan of it. And last up for this video, we have Dior Homme Original. So what we're doing, of course, is just returning back to default, so to speak, with Dior Homme. Obviously, they put out Dior Homme 2020. That changed things up a little bit. And then they kind of came back out with this one, giving us the opportunity to have the Dior Homme that we were very familiar with at one point in time. And it's nice, and I'm glad that they did, because it just makes sense, right? We have Dior Homme Intense, which is much more sweet than this. It's nice to have a fresher alternative, you know, because if you don't have this and you want a fresher iris alternative, well, maybe they figured that what people were doing is they were jumping over to Prada L'Homme Intense. They were jumping over to another designer brand's fresher iris scent, right? They don't want that, so they want to keep them with Dior, so they brought this one back, which was the smart thing to do. You know, I wish they would have kept around Dior Homme O, because that was a fantastic fresher iris scent with a nice coriander focus as well. But that one's been long gone and probably won't ever come back. But yeah, I love the original. If you smell Dior Homme 2011, you know, then that's what this smells like. Really, hardly any differences. I have silver stem bottles of Dior Homme, and the differences are just pretty mild at the end of the day here. Nothing that's worth really hunting down older stuff. But yeah, love this stuff. Very wearable, great for spring as well, which is coming up. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for me. Some fragrances that I don't believe are overhyped. I think a lot of these could use some more hype. Maybe they are deserving of it, although it's nice to kind of have these to ourselves. But I think that, you know, for the money, these are great and they're worth adding to your collection for sure. I'll drop links to them down below. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.